Welcome to Crash Course English. I am your host, McKenna.
I'm Kyla.
I'm Dee.
I'm Amina.
And today we will be discussing this lovely piece of literature known as none other than
Pride and Prejudice!
The author of Pride and Prejudice is Jane Austen. Austen was born on December 16, 1775, in the United Kingdom. She was inspired to write due to her family's encouragement and her observation of society. She is known as a prominent English novelist, best known for her 6 completed novels, including Pride and Prejudice and Sense of Sensibility.
Austen first published Pride and Prejudice in January 1813, and this work is a fiction novel, meaning that it was created. It's not created based on a true story.
During the time period that Pride and Prejudice was created, a period of transition had begun, marked by the French Revolution, the Napoleonic Wars, and the Industrial Revolution, with Britain undergoing significant social and political changes. In the book Pride and Prejudice, Mrs. Bennet puts pressure on her daughters to marry rich men in good standing in society. Her daughter Elizabeth starts conflicts with a man named Darcy due to his perceived arrogance. They also fight over the relationship between Elizabeth's sister Jane and Darcy's friend Bingley.
Once she's able to realize that his character traits are not how they seem, they are able to overcome this conflict and realize that they're in love, which is how the story ends.
The setting in Pride and Prejudice is super important because it helps us understand the characters, their social status, and the rules they have to follow.
One of the main locations in Pride and Prejudice is Longbourn, the Bennet family's house. It's not a huge mansion like some of the estates in the novel, but it's still a comfortable living space. Since Mr. Bennet has no sons, the house will be inherited by Mr. Collins, which is why Mrs. Bennet is so desperate to marry off her daughters.
The second location is Netherfield Park, where Mr. Bingley stays. This house is much fancier than Longbourn, showing that Mr. Bingley is wealthier and from a higher class. It's a place where Elizabeth first really starts to notice Darcy.
The third location is Pemberley, Darcy's grand estate. Elizabeth's visit to Pemberley later in the novel is a turning point because it makes her realize that she actually likes
The
it.
final location is Rosings Park. This is where Lady Catherine's massive estate is located, which is all about showing off wealth and power, just like Lady Catherine
One
herself.
of the biggest themes in Pride and Prejudice is social class and marriage, and honestly the whole book is about who's marrying whom and why. Back in Jane Austen's time, marriage wasn't really about love, it was about money and status. For example, Charlotte Lucas. She marries Mr. Collins, not because she likes him, but because of her financial needs. Meanwhile, Elizabeth Bennet actually wants to marry for love. And then there's Jane and Bingley, and everyone knows they're perfect for each other, but Bingley's friends think Jane isn't wealthy enough, so they try to break them up.
Another huge theme is Pride and Prejudice. It's even in the title. Elizabeth judges Darcy immediately, assuming he's arrogant and cruel just because of his serious personality. Meanwhile, Darcy actually likes Elizabeth, but thinks she's too low class for him. The story is about the characters realizing their mistakes. Elizabeth sees that she misjudged Darcy, and Darcy learns to let go of his pride. And in the end, they both change for the better, proving that first impressions aren't always right. Lastly, there's gender roles. Women in this time had almost no independence. Marriage was basically their only option for a stable future. The Bennet sisters are in trouble because their dad's estate will go to the Collins, meaning they have to marry, well, or risk being.
Pride and Prejudice reveals personality traits about the characters directly and indirectly. Austen directly characterizes through her own descriptions, while she indirectly characterizes through dialogues and interactions.
When Austen characterizes Caroline Bingley as a cute, doted daughter of a super wealthy family.
Additional indirect characterization can be seen at the beginning of the novel, where Mr. Bennet reveals a vivid description of each daughter.
Austen uses dialogue to explore themes such as social class, marriage, and reputation, reveal characterization, and develop the plot.
While describing Collins to Jane, Lizzie expresses her opinion as Mr. Collins is a conceited, pompous, narrow-minded, and silly man.
Another choice Austen uses is free and direct discourse, which reveals to the readers the inner thoughts of the characters, specifically Elizabeth.
For example, Austen creates a strong bond between the reader and Elizabeth by revealing her inner thoughts and walking them through her journey of realization. For instance, in the part where Elizabeth meets Darcy at Pemberley, through free and direct discourse, the reader hears her thoughts full of despair and shame. Her coming there was the most unfortunate, the most ill-judged thing in the world. Austen 257.
Austen utilizes free and direct discourse to reveal the secret thoughts and feelings of characters in her novels. In this example, you can almost hear Lydia saying, "My dear Wickham," as she often does.
Okay. Irony and satire is used to highlight the old societal norms around marriage during the early 19th century in England. Through sarcasm, Austen is actively commenting on misogyny and the fact that the relationships were driven by financial stability rather than love.
Early in the story, Darcy rejects Elizabeth, but Austen pokes fun at the fact that Darcy is ignoring the seemingly perfect woman, Caroline, for Elizabeth. Darcy had never been so bewitched by any woman as he was by her. He really believed that were it not for the inferiority of her connections, he should be in some danger. Austen 56.
The question we're going to be talking about is how do two of the works you've studied portray the struggle to be understood? And specifically in Pride and Prejudice, the struggle to be understood is Elizabeth because she doesn't want to get married, but she has a lot of pressure on her from her family and society because women in good standing are generally expected to marry well and have a good match with their husband. And then another example is also just Darcy and Elizabeth's first impressions of each other because they really dislike each other and don't really understand each other's true motives. But towards the end, that's when they finally are able to realize that first impressions aren't everything, and the struggle to be understood can only be helped by getting to know each other better.
The second text we would choose to answer this question would be Hedda Gabler, because in Hedda Gabler, the struggle to be understood is a central theme within the book, and particularly through Hedda herself, she's trapped in a world where no one truly sees or understands her desires or needs for control. Despite being surrounded by people throughout the play, the people around Hedda see her through their own perspectives rather than who she truly is. Tesman sees her as a refined and elegant wife. Judge Brack views her as an object of desire, and Mrs. Elvsted sees her as a powerful woman, but does not recognize her deep restlessness and despair. Another example would be Hedda's suicide, which is an example of her final act of trying to gain control of her life, and it also shows her discontent with her life and how she was never understood throughout her life. It is both an attempt to escape and a last expression of herself in a way which she believes is beautiful.
The second question we will be exploring is explore the ways in which shifting historical, social, and cultural contexts can have an impact on how texts are interpreted. The two texts we would feel best represent this question are The Handmaid's Tale and Pride and Prejudice.
In Pride and Prejudice, Elizabeth Bennet's refusal of Mr. Cullen's proposal is a clear example of how societal norms are challenged. At the time, marriage was often seen as a woman's only way to secure her future, but Elizabeth rejects the societal pressure. This rejection of marriage for security rather than love reflects a shift in how the modern readers interpret gender role within the novel.
In The Handmaid's Tale, the quote says, "My arms are raised, she holds my hand, each of one and each of hers." This is supposed to signify that we're one flesh, one being. What it really means is that she's in control of the process and thus of the product. This quote signifies to the reader the freedom the handmaids receive in the society of Gilead. Alfred is forced to pleasure the commander for his sole purpose of making children. This emphasizes the lack of freedom she has due to the society's strict rules.
Both of these texts, The Handmaid's Tale and Pride and Prejudice, support the claim that societies are unjust and persuade ruling based on gender and time period.
2, 1. Thanks for watching!